Hello, my wild roses. It's me, Kirsten, and you are listening to the It's Giving Mystical podcast. Today we are going to talk about the energy of May 2023, energy that is ruled by the Hierophant and the Hangman, energy that is defined by the number 5, which is the number of change. The rumors are true. May is going to be an extremely powerful transformational month. What do we do with that? What do we do with that idea of transformation, of an important pivotal month? Well, if we're leaning on the energy of the tarot, we lean on the messaging that is coming through the Hierophant and the Hangman, and we'll talk about what that means and what that is. But it has to do with building the life you are dreaming of, creating a world in which you want to live, a world in which a fuller expression of you is possible. A world in which your medicine sinks more deeply into your bones, more of your light is revealed, and you can make corn with that. And what does that mean? Well, I'll talk about it. But it means that you can pour the energy, the essence, the beauty that is you, the fullness that is you. You can get to a place where you pour that back into your community, where you unite the spiritual part of you and the earthly part of you more beautifully. You weave them together more tightly. The questions that come up this month have to do with what is sacred to you and where are you in devotion and what have you allowed to mediate your experience of source, and is that still working for you, and are there things you could do to get closer, to feel closer, to recognize the truth that you are source, you are spirit, you are the divine experiencing the world as you. That truth is going to land more deeply for all of us this month. A world where we are all more free to be exactly who we are. So come with me on this journey while we talk about all of these things and think about all of these things and explore all of these things. The energy of the Hangman coming in just says to us that you have a singular perspective. You have a really unique, a totally unique perspective on life, especially what you need, especially where you're going. And the Hangman is the invitation to just trust that and not let anyone knock you off course. Remember, we're in a chariot year. We are making movement, and May is the month that I imagine we will be making a substantial amount of movement. The world will be making a substantial amount of movement. So let's talk about it together. Let's explore. And at the end, I'll pull a card for every sign, and take that as you will. You can use that for your sun, your moon, your rising, your Venus. You can listen, whatever works for you. May this be a gift. May this help you feel more seen, help you feel more free, and help you open your arms to the opportunity and magic that maybe you can know yourself a little more deeply and express yourself a little more fully as we cross this gateway that is May 2023. It's giving everything is sacred. It's giving art. It's giving light you up and turn you on and set you free. It's giving curiosity. It's giving freedom. It's giving love. It's giving you are more magical and powerful than you can comprehend. It's giving, I don't know what's happening, but I am so here for it. It's giving you are pure potential. It's giving mystical. May 2023. Hierophant energy, Hangman energy, the energy of 5 and 7 and 12, and how those things come together. I have to say, even before I turned over a single card, before I started meditating on the energy of this month and what the collective wants to understand and know and work with this month, May 2023 jumped off the metaphorical page of my mind. It was really glowing. And I know that this is an important month, but I guess I just want to reiterate that something important is happening this month, and we'll talk a little bit about the dimensions around which those important shifts are taking place. But the image that really came right to me was this image of like a corn husk, and the way that the outer leaves kind of dry up and fall away. It feels very much like we are going to reveal ourselves this month, again, both collectively and individually. There's going to be a falling away of these old shells. And it really is interesting how it's showing up in my mind, because it's not showing up like a snakeskin, which is normally what I would think of, or even a cocoon, what I would think of when I think of metamorphosis, transition, shifting. This feels like a very plant-based metaphor. And what comes to mind is in shamanic work, when you talk about corn is so important in shamanic ritual because the idea is that may your medicine make corn. So may you have this life that is filled with spirit, that is at one with the earth, that is at one with all beings, all creatures, that really lives in this very high octave of possibility, this very high octave of spirituality, of spirit, of feeling spirit within you and around you. But it needs to make corn. So it needs to benefit your life. It needs to benefit the life of your community. It's a way of, in shamanic work, saying like, don't just sit on the mountaintop. This work is not spiritual journeying, discovery, understanding is not to isolate yourself, is not to kind of draw away from the human experience. This work is done to elevate the human experience, to pour into the human experience, to pour back into the community. So I love that image for coming up because it feels so gentle, shedding husk of the corn. It also feels so right. So it feels like these leaves that are shedding feel really dry and ready. Like they feel very ready to fall away. They feel like they've really done their work, done their purpose. And the things that are falling away really are these kind of old coatings that we don't need anymore. And then what's revealed is the dimensionality of the corn, the dimensionality of our beings, and the fact that we are here to evolve, but to evolve to what end? To evolve to create, to evolve to contribute, to evolve to serve, to evolve to live this earthly life. I hope I can communicate how simple, and it's like so many things, right? We can think, oh, corn, like that's not so sexy, right? We want to see a phoenix. We want to see, hawk energy. We want to see the butterfly emerging from the cocoon. Like, yes, those are kind of the sexy, exciting spiritual images that pop up. But corn is what you plant and eat and how you feed your family. And it is such a simple crop, but also such an important one. I think it's like the three sisters, right? Isn't that one of the Native American lore? You talk about the three sisters, those three grains and how important they are and to a community. So just this idea that this moment of golden transformation, elevation, a real discovery of your gifts in a new way. And when I say gifts, I mean your medicine, but I also mean your magic. And I know that's the same thing, but it's also different, like your sparkle, like this revealing of your light. It's really cool, the energy I'm feeling around this. It feels almost intimidating as I was started to record this and as I was trying to get a handle on how to talk through this energy. I feel even intimidated doing it, and I feel like I don't want to overpromise something. And so there's a part of me, and this happens to me like when I'm in the Akasha and I see something really specific, like I'll see the person's face of, someone's asking about a love interest and I'll see their face, or I'll hear a date, or I'll hear something like so specific. I really hesitate. My ego always gets in the way. My ego always kind of steps in and is like, are you sure you want to offer that happiness? You want to offer that specificity? Like, what if you're wrong, Kirst? What if you're wrong? And that's the way I feel about this. Like, spirit inside of me, the joyful child that plays with cards, wants to be like, you guys, this is freaking amazing. Like, this is what we've been working for. This is big energy. And then the like regulatory mom in me wants to be like, but don't get too excited. Let's not get our hopes up. Like, it's just a very interesting dynamic even happening within me. And so I just want to offer for me and for you, and while we listen to this together, that let's dream bigger. And that's something that my mom in particular said to one of my cousins, and I know it's something that she really holds on to, but it's become kind of this mantra that we all share together. And so many of us in so many parts of our lives are kind of confronted right now with a little bit of a nudge and a nod from the universe, like, baby girl, you can dream bigger. And I had this I could tell you the story. I'm not quite ready to share the story yet, but I did have this experience of spirit kind of coming to me and showing me this scope of beauty and joy in my life that I really didn't know was possible. and to feel that like expansive, that companionship in the universe, to say like, yeah, baby, dream bigger. And when I say dream bigger, yeah, bigger. No. Keep going, keep going. That is the energy of May. And I say that not only for what the universe wants to bring to you, but how much the universe wants to infuse you as a force out in the world, infuse you as the medicine and the healer and the magic and the gift to the world. So cool. Let's just kind of start at the beginning, and we'll start with this energy of the Hierophant 5 energy. So 5, just at its most basic, is a little bit of a confronting energy. 5 is the energy of challenge and conflict. It is also the energy of freedom, of liberation, of creativity. So there is inherent movement in 5, inherent restructuring, and inherent tension in 5. So 5s, when they come up, are always saying to me some change is afoot, something is being shaken up. May is always a month of transition, right? It doesn't matter what hemisphere you live in. Like, May is this time of transitional energy. And the card that represents that in the tarot is the Hierophant, which is just a really interesting, almost contradiction, right? Because the Hierophant is the Pope. When I teach tarot, people have this is one of the cards, actually this card and the Hangman, which is the other card we're going to talk about today, are two of the cards that always surprise me in how strong a reaction people have to them. And mostly they have a strongly negative reaction to both of them. So I'm going to talk you through what I think they're actually the energy I think they're trying to offer us. And I just ask you to have an open mind about this. I ask you to, the word Pope is loaded. It has deep association with the Catholic Church, which the Catholic Church is a place of great mystery and beauty and ritual and tradition. And it is also a place of great pain and oppression. So we're going to kind of hold both those things a little loosely just for this time together in this conversation. The Pope is a very still figure, right? The Pope has this energy of like, there has always been a Pope, there will always be a Pope, it will always be a white man. Like, there's that energy of the Pope, right? There's also this idea of the Pope being somehow like the defender of God, or somehow the gateway to God, right? Like, you're not getting to God unless you go through the Pope. You're not getting to God unless you go through the priest, right? I really want to throw that out the window today. The energy of the Hierophant is the bridge. If I could rename the Hierophant, I would call it the bridge. Because what the Hierophant is offering us is this energetic transmission, this energetic movement. And what it's taking us towards is the sacred. What it's taking us closer to is spirit. So think about what the Pope represents is this mediator, right? The Pope is, in the Catholic Church in general, positions itself as the mediator between you and God. He says, like, listen, God's out there and you're over here, and I am going to translate for you. I'm going to tell you what to do to be loved by God, accepted by God, to understand God. So just like listen to me and repeat after me, right? That's the energy of the Pope. And I'm being a little bit reductive, but kind of on purpose. So that's the energy of the Pope. And that mediation is the important part. So the guy who's sitting up there, we can have all kinds of thoughts about what he's up to. But the energy of what he's trying to convey is that there is something between you and God. And what I'll say is that feels like a very old way of living. If we're talking about taking spirit and God and putting some kind of wrapping around it so that you limit access, so that you gain power, that is really what many churches do, right? Like, the energy that first comes from a church is, God, let's gather together and feel God, right? And then the human aspect steps in, and it kind of sees all the power inherent in that and kind of can't help but get sticky and complicated with it. For the sake of this conversation, for the sake of the tarot, let's think about this idea of the Pope, the idea of the mediator, the idea of the bridge as something more objective. Let's think about the feeling when, if you've ever done this, where you've walked over to a tree hugger, and touched the tree or sat at the base of the tree and just felt that energetic exchange. Like, just felt that and thought to yourself, like, there's something sacred here. There's something spiritual happening here, right? So the tree becomes your Pope. Or if you've ever fallen in love with a child or a lover or anyone, and that you've seen them move and your heart has just given way. Like, oh my God, that is what I'm here for. This is why I'm alive. This is what it means. Like, this is worth everything, right? That is the Pope. That is the Hierophant. That is the mediator. It's anything that can bridge, can show you and say, look, this is sacred. This is why we're here. This is awe. This is God, right? Like, that's the energy that this card is trying to convey. That there are moments and people and experiences that are full of this energetic potential, this energetic pulsing of, this is God. Like, pay attention. It's so interesting because I don't actually say that much, but in April that came up and it's coming up again. Like, it's really beautiful, this call to pay attention. Like, pay attention to what is, the good and the bad. And the Hierophant is the energetic current that connects you to Source. And I know that you are Source, but I also know as a human, part of your journey is to actually be a mediation as well between earth, between spirit and earth, between the spiritual and the material. Like, it's to be this kind of bridge between and to experience kind of the aches and the pains and the delicacy of the body, right? Like, how much tending the body requires. Like, you need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to feel affection. These are like, your body is very vulnerable to, it's very delicate in some ways, right? So robust and miraculous, but also quite delicate. And spirit, like this unknown, this unseeable. The Hierophant is that energy. The Hierophant is, pay attention. There's currents of energy everywhere. And when the Hierophant comes up, the question that I ask, the question that comes, that kind of drops into the reading or drops into it, is like, what is sacred to you? What have you decided is sacred to you? And what's up with that? Like, where is that living in your life? How are you aware of just how precious that thing is? Are you aware of what you are in devotion to? So many parallels in the tarot. So if you start to like study the major arcana, you begin to see these parallels. And the parallel that I'll draw out for you is the Hierophant, the Lovers, and the Devil. And each of those is like the figures on the cards are set up the same way. And the Hierophant is kind of the first introduction of this. Like, listen, you are in devotion to things in your life. There are things in your life that kind of are pulsingly alive with spirit. How much are you paying attention to that? How much space are you giving that in life? How much are you really honoring what that means? What it means to be in devotion, to like honor, and I know I keep saying God, but like put whatever word and works for you, like God, Goddess, Spirit, Source. Like, what does it mean to make your life an act of devotion to that? That is a two-way street. That is a conduit. So the more you move through life with this devotional spirit, the more life feeds you back. The more life kind of like feeds you back with energy, with vitality. Talk about sexy. Like, it is such an incredible way to live, to have this sense of like devotion to spirit and to feel how spirit like feeds that back into you. It's amazing. The Hierophant is a card that holds that potential. So in a 5 month, that is, like last month I said, the question that kind of pops up is, what is your domain? In a 5 month, what comes up is, what is sacred to you? What are you in devotion to? And so the other important thing about the Pope, the Hierophant, the bridge, is that the other question that comes up when you're thinking about the Pope or the Hierophant or the bridge is, who am I allowing to mediate my experience of the sacred? Who am I allowing to mediate my experience of God? What have I put between God and myself? What have I put between the spiritual? What have I put between Source and myself? What have I determined knows more than I do about what is God? So that can be ritual, that can be a person, that can be a practice. And the Hierophant coming up draws your attention to, like, who do you give that power to? Who do you give away that power to? Because, like I said, you are Source and you know that. And you are also having a human experience. So at some point along the line, you put something there. You put a pope there. You put a pope placeholder there. And you say that thing, that person, that teacher, that ritual, that experience, that practice knows God better than me, is closer to God than me, is the only way to God. And in a 5-month, that is going to be brought up for questioning and understanding. What are the popes in your life? And are they clean and clear? And are they right? And why have you chosen them? What if you allowed yourself to get closer to spirit? What if you allowed yourself to get curious about other ways to access it, other conduits, other channels that might also help you feel God is close, spirit is close, source is close? I didn't finish this thought, but like in the Lovers, it says, how are you balancing devotion to other with devotion to self, and what choices are you making around that? And the devil energy, it says, you place yourself in service to these things. These are the things that you were devoted to. Is that still working for you? Where has that become a habit versus a fresh awareness? So there's a really interesting kind of story about how those 3 cards come together. There's so many interesting stories in the tarot, right? That's why it's endlessly fascinating. For the purposes of this month, these questions around like, what is sacred to me? What am I in devotion to? And back to what I said in the very beginning about these dry leaves, when the things in your life aren't filled with that vitality of that sense of devotion, that sense of appreciation, that sense of sacredness, then they dry up. They become like the dry husk leaves, right? They just wither, and there's no, you can't feel the pulse anymore. And so the Hierophant comes up, it says like to look around. So we've looked around in April at our domain, right? So look around at your domain. What about this is sacred and pulsing and alive and is looking for me to confront it and liberate energy in it? And that's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful invitation. What I'll say about 5 energy is it's a little bit like the Wheel of Fortune in that there is movement afoot, there is change afoot. There's also the temptation to get into conflict. There's the temptation to push people's buttons. There's a temptation to try to fix it. Like if someone comes at you, they present something that leaves you unsettled or uncomfortable, unsure. And oftentimes our reaction is like, I want that to go away. So what do? Well, let me pick a fight, or let me force a conversation, or let me explain how I feel, or let me fawn over them until they feel better so then I feel better. Like there's all those trauma responses come into play. And the ones that a 5 particularly activates have to do with fight. Right? They have to do with, or sometimes flight, but really it's usually fight. It's usually a confronting energy and a forcing energy and a I need to fix this energy. So that is something to kind of be aware of. And to notice this month, listen, we are in the eclipse portal. Mercury retrograde will end, I think, around the 14th or something of May. Jupiter will transition into Taurus, which I know is kind of a long-awaited astrological shift. There is plenty is going to happen. Plenty is going to happen. And so be aware of how comfortable you are allowing yourself to be with change, how reactive your discomfort might be making you. And again, thinking about like if we have to reset in May, the reset is where do I need to be in devotion, and what is sacred to me, and what have I allowed to mediate my experience of these things? What have I allowed to be the Pope in my life? What have I given that power of what is sacred? What is worthy of your devotion? Who have I given that? Who or what have I given that power away to? How am I tending to that? How am I allowing that? I think the child analogy is a really good one, right? Like you watch your children grow and you watch them have conflict. You watch them be challenged. You watch them create. It can be very hard to do that, right? We want to comfort. We want to wrap them up. We want to protect them. And so we watch them go through these challenges and these conflicts, and it can be physically uncomfortable. But at the same time, it's right. That's as much a part of your job as the protecting part, right? You're constantly negotiating. Where do I step closer and where do I step back? Where do I tend to and where do I allow? And that is really going to come up as you watch things kind of shuffle around. So again, 5 energy, May energy is change. Like that is probably the key word for a 5 month. So things are going to change on their own. Where are you? When you sit with that change, are you allowing it to resolve itself? Are you allowing it to kind of have its unfolding? Term that I really keep running into in such interesting places, right? I'm running into it in the spiritual community, but I'm also running into it. I heard this evolutionary biologist speak about it, and she was really speaking about an evolution standpoint, but she kept talking about this unfolding in a way that sounded very spiritual to me and very much in line with what we're thinking in terms of how we're collectively evolving, how we're individually evolving. And I said it on that mini podcast I did. This idea of the unfolding is that all things are equally evolved. And the universe is in this constant state of evolution, this constant state of evolving, of unfolding. And so much of our work is to allow that, be curious with that, and to ride the waves of that without thinking that we are the unfolder or we somehow have control over the pacing of that. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of self-possession to sit with that. There's also something deeply satisfying about that level of trust and surrender in the universe and where it's traveling to. Okay, so Hierophant, that's like my very long preamble on the energy of Hierophant. The other energy that's going to be at play this month is 12, which is Hangman energy. The Hangman is the simplest word associated with that tarot card is reversal. Submission also comes up. Sorry, Spirit was like, say submission. Submission also comes up. So reversal and submission. The Hangman is also a very interesting card, and it's also a card that people are very triggered by when they're first learning tarot. And I would again invite you to get curious about what your assumptions are about this card. So people will often look at it and say, oh my God, he's tied up. He, she, they are tied up. So this must be awful. But they're in this state of real peaceful repose as well. The Hangman, when it comes up, people will say pause, like take it. It's not the Hermit. It's not like a step away, but Hangman is like just pause for a minute. And I would say yes, but I would also say respect your perspective. When the Hangman comes up, like respect your perspective and do not seek outside validation, because there's a way in which you are understanding what you need and who you are and where you are and what's happening in your world in a way that other people just can't. When the Hangman comes up, it says to pause. Yes, but I would think of it pause like taking a breath around your reactivity more than anything, or taking a breath around a need to explain yourself, or taking a breath around seeking confirmation for your intuition out in the world. And while those are all fine things to do, the Hangman is like a question and asking of you, do you trust yourself? You have a singular perspective on the world. You have a singular perspective on what you need and who you are and where you're going and what you want your world to look like. You also, because we're talking about Hierophant energy, you also have a singular perspective on what is sacred to you. You have a singular perspective on what you are devoted to. And so when the Hangman comes up, there's just this idea with this card that there is a different perspective circulating around, and you've had to do something extreme. You've had to go hang upside down in the tree to kind of clear your head and to see clearly again, to see straight again, even though it sounds like a little contradictory. The idea is like, something about what the world is telling me isn't jiving, isn't like settling in my body. So I'm going to go flip my perspective. I'm going to purposely move myself in a different way and see what that changes for me. In a Hangman month, when you feel confused or unsure, drive a different way home. Like wear something you haven't worn in a while. Like try something new, ask a different question, journal on something you're struggling with a new prompt, or turn the book upside down, or write with your left hand. I mean, like to really do these kind of physical body focused things to shake it up. While I do think it's important to stay grounded, I also think it's important to turn inward, to come back to like, what matters to me in this moment? What life am I trying to create? What is sacred to me? And do I trust that impulse? Do I trust those impulses? And when the Hangman comes up, you're going to be tested. That's the truth of it. You're going to be tested on what you're doing and what you're choosing to do. And that's okay. The hangman says, only you know, only you really know what's right for you. And I was listening to someone, they were talking about this idea of karma actually. And I was thinking, like, we think that, again, like we think we know what's best. Like we think we know what it's like for another person. So when we have conflict with another person, we paint them with the colors that we want to. And we say like, well, and we try to rationalize the experience for ourselves or rationalize our feelings. So we say, well, this must be who they are. Listen, like who you see them to be is not who they are. Who you see them to be is a projection of what you see. Sorry, facts. And also like that moment in time. But they are like you, equally evolved. And I just think that's important because, especially for us, right? Like us people who are doing this work and trying to live more integrity, trying to, be kinder, more compassionate, trying to do more good in the world, trying to serve better. You can look at some of these extremes in the newspapers or, in the media, the newspapers. I'm such an old lady sometimes. Oh my God, you guys. In the newspaper, in the media, and you can say, like, I think about this all the time, right? Like, I think about this with, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to hold back. I see this with the legislation that's being passed around transgender youth right now and transgender medical interventions of any kind, or even with the abortion debates, right? Like, who are these people that look at another human being and say, I know what's best for you. Like, I know what's best for you. I know better than you. And think that they have the right to trespass on someone's bodily autonomy that way. Like, I just have a very hard time. I think about it probably too much. Most things I can kind of put myself in someone's shoes. I am flexible that way. I'm not flexible on this one. Like, I have a really hard time understanding it. I know there's politics involved and all of that, but what I've come to, and because I've been meditating on this a lot, where do I do that? Like, where do I, as like a spiritual person and a teacher and a healer and a yada, 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 but somewhere in my life, I know that I'm still looking at other people and saying, I know better than you. Or, you deserve to be punished for that thing, or whatever the energy is, or like, I don't know, like any place I'm setting up me versus them is problematic. That's the truth of it. And that is a hard pill to swallow. And I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I am saying for my own practice, right? If I can look out into the world and I can say, man, those people are terrible. Like, how dare they? How dare they trespass on someone's bodily autonomy? How dare they make decisions or try to legislate around a person's sense of identity? Like, well then, okay, Kirsten. So like, do all the political work of that, do the activism work of that, but also, where are you doing that? Like, where do I look at someone else and say, I know better? And I just say this because that's kind of one of the evolution points that we're up against, is we can't point out what other people are doing wrong on these kind of global scales and not be willing to look at where we're doing it in our own lives. And I know that's a high bar and that's a lot to ask, but like, hey, like if we want a better world, we have to work for it, and we have to work for it in our own practice, and we have to work for it out in the streets. Like, that's the deal, right? That's kind of why we're signed up for a life of service and a life of, healing. That was a tangent, if there ever was one. But my point is that in the hangman energy, the only person who really knows what is needed is the person living in that body. So that means that we trust our instincts around our own experience. We release the need for validation from other people to understand where we are. We spend time in contemplation, in meditation, in quiet, reviewing and checking in with ourselves and making sure that our choices feel aligned and empowered. And then we trust them. And at the same time, we look at others in the world and we don't put our lens on what they should be doing. And that is not easy, dude. I'm not saying that's easy, but I am saying that's what the hangman energy calls for. And the reward of that, here's where it gets good. And here's where there's a part of me that's like, is it possible for this to really be such a transitional month? The energy that comes up around that is, I pulled both the mystic and the king. Those are key archetypes in Jungian psychology, like the king or the the sovereign, king, queen, sovereign, and the magician or the mystic. Those are like polarized archetypes, and they are key. They are key. Part of, and you can think about this from Jungian psychology, you can think about this from spiritual evolution, you can think about this from a sense of integrity. This idea that I need to be sovereign over my life, and this idea that I am a creature of deep alchemy and transformation and magic, that those two energies have an equal importance, they deserve equal play in my life, that they deserve equally to be cultivated and nurtured and developed. Listen, if May is a month where those two things are falling into line, or in any way, shape, or form, you're starting to notice that those two things are equally important to hold, that's huge. That's like a landmark touch point. That's like a landmark boundary. If we somehow collectively begin to hold this idea of power and domain and rulership, we hold that equal to this idea of magic and transformation and the unseen and alchemy and energy. Like if we begin to really like think of this idea of like material substance and spiritual substance being equally important, that's huge. That is the potential that we are uncovering. That is the husk that is falling away. The husk that is falling away that somehow, it's so interesting how there's just a rhythm to all of this, right? Because that also came up in the past couple weeks in the podcast, like this idea of tantra, this idea of weaving, this idea that everything is spiritual. That's the energy I'm picking up for May. Like this revelation that it's not about my spiritual work as this kind of like offshoot of like, oh, I'm just gonna go on a retreat and yeah, it feels so good. Like, fuck no. Like, yes, you go off on a retreat and it feels so good, but then you bring it back to make corn. You bring it back to make corn in your life and make corn for your community. And then on the flip side, right? Like, I got to make the corn. All I can do is make corn. I have to own all the land so I can make all the corn. It's like, no, fuck no to that too. Like, you do it because it's sacred. You do it because you're in devotion to your community. You do that because we're all one. So do you see how like all of a sudden there's so much more to it? There's so much more to living if you're holding both of those, my ability to make corn and my ability to be one with spirit, if I'm holding those two things in equal measure. And again, because of the hangman energy, only you know what that means for your life. Like only you know what that means for your life. But I will tell you in May, the other energies that are coming up are this idea of your depths. Like you're going to uncover spiritual depths. You are going to touch spiritual depths that you may not have accessed before. And that may be something that sounds exciting to you and feels really comfortable, and that may be something that sounds a little intimidating to you. But I would imagine it has to do with the Scorpio eclipse that's coming on May 5th, the work that's happening in Pluto. There is something in your body that is revealing depth to you. Tied into that, woven into that, is this idea of what makes you unique, like your eccentricities, your magic, your medicine, revealing your depth to you as a way to show you exactly who you are and show you what you're here to do. There is, again, like there's a greater vision possible in May, a greater vision for how you show up in the world, and a greater vision for what your unique vibrational gift, your dharma, what that actually means, like what that means for the life you create, what that means for the world you live in, what that means for your community. I hope I'm expressing this clearly, because it is a really hopeful, very bright, like it's very vibrant. It would be like if all of a sudden everybody was just more free to be who they are, and everyone carried a little more clarity about just how special their contribution is, just how important their contribution is. And I think that's something that, you know, if it hasn't been said to you, I'll say it here. I remember my dad saying it to me about writing. Like he said, you don't realize that it's such a gift for you because it comes so easily to you. So he's like, our gifts are not something that we can see. Like they have to be reflected to us in some way. And so the things that come easily to you, the things that feel effortless to you, are often the places where your gifts lie. And this idea, again, of like you were created perfectly. You were given the combination of life circumstances, the combination of astrological energies, the combination of color, vibrancy, song. You were given these notes in perfect order, and no one else in the world can sing your song. And the energy of May is like, we're all going to know that a little bit more. That's going to land in your body a little more heavily. And with that learning, not heavily, deeply. And with that learning is going to come this clarity around, oh, right, I am the only one who can sing this song. And this is how I'm going to make corn with that gift. It's really cool. It's like, I don't know. It's just my vision of it is like, it almost feels too good to be true. It almost feels like, wait a second, is it possible that we could live in a world where people feel more empowered in their medicine and then are willing to work towards sharing that? It's really, really beautiful energy. The last thing I'll say is kind of the first thing I said. There is a shedding happening this month, and there is going to be this testing. It's not even a testing, it's a projection from the outside world, both in and out. So you're going to notice that you're seeking validation for your intuition in places that maybe it's not appropriate. This idea of the shedding, this idea of, or the falling away of the old things, right? This idea of constant change that will be the atmosphere for May. This idea that you are recognizing new depths of understanding around yourself and your place in the world and what is sacred to you and what you are devoted to. And then also understanding what that means for the way you structure your life, understanding what that means for how you make your corn. All of those things coming together, think about that. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask of somebody. And you still have to pay the bills and feed the kids and go to work and like get your exercise and drink your water, right? If it's possible for you, build out space for retreat in May. Build out space for you to get quiet. And I say that because of everything I just said, but I also say that because you're going to need to check in. You're going to have a little bit of this these winds swirling around you. And I would say particularly in terms of like the stories you hear, the words you hear, that are going to call into question what your intuition knows. And I know I already said this, but I'm just going to kind of say it 3 different ways because I hope it really lands. It's going to call into question what you know in your bones, in your intuition, what you know in terms of who you are and why you've come. And when that gets kind of poked from the outside, when that gets challenged, which is very much what happens in a 5-month, if you don't have quiet spaces in your life, you might doubt yourself in a way that's not necessary. So we build out these retreat spaces because things are changing all around us, because our intuition is telling us something that really we're capable of hearing and metabolizing in this moment. It doesn't mean the world won't eventually get it, but we might be the only ones to get it at first, because there are new depths of you being revealed that want to be seen and heard. So building out spaces for retreat in May is going to be really important. And any pressure you feel to force things or move things along in May, check yourself. Like check yourself, por favor. Like check yourself, because enough is going to change without stirring the pot. And that doesn't mean it's so, because one of the oh my God, one of the questions that comes up for the May Q&A is like, do I get back together with my ex during Mercury retrograde? Like, do I take the high road and like know better, or do I just like deal with what's presented to me? And I'm going to get into a much longer answer around that, but like, deal with what's presented to you. It doesn't mean you necessarily like go hook up with your ex, but like if someone shows back up in your life, face it, be with it. And it comes back to what you'll hear me say 1,000 times, like what's right in front of you. And so that alone is going to cause, like, things are going to appear. Like that also was the message for this past week, right? Like things are arriving. And I keep thinking about that language, and part of me is like, are the aliens coming? Like, what do you mean? Like, who's arriving? What's happening? But like, that's how big it feels, right? So this idea that like things are going to keep arriving in May, they're going to keep showing up on your steps, like, hey, here I am. And you're going to have plenty to do just interacting with that and keeping your head straight in terms of checking in with yourself. That's going to cause enough excitement. I promise you. April was a time for like remembering what our domain looked like. May is a time for remembering what matters to us. staying focused on what matters to you. And then as everything kind of comes to you to be dealt with, keeping in mind, like, okay, here's this new thing. What am I in devotion to? What is sacred to me? How does this work with that? Is this a place where my devotional energy, comes into play? And that's the other thing. Like, if you knew, baby, if you knew just how precious your energy was, like if you really knew the gift you were to this world, if you really understood how precious and brief and totally unique you are, your energy is, your gift is, your medicine is, you would not waste a fucking second of it. And you certainly wouldn't waste an ounce of it on something that doesn't give you energy back, that doesn't devote itself back to you. I am a gift. Cultivate that energy, and then whatever, I am sacred. I am a gift. I am sacred. I am singular. Cultivate that energy, and I have work to do. Cultivate that energy, and then whatever shows up at your door, you're going to look at it and you're going to know, is this part of the work I have to do? Is this part of me refining my music, refining my song, refining my art that is my life? Oh, it is? Okay, let's do it. Let's get into it. It's not, I bless you, I love you, no thank you. Right? Like, this is where we start to really get a sense of just how precious our energy is, and we don't waste an ounce of it because we know that there is important work to be done with it. Oh my goodness. I hope that was helpful. Let's see. I'm going to pull a card for every sign. And I just would say, like, listen as you are called. Like, I'm a nosy Parker, so I listen for my sun, my moon, my rising. I also listen for my Venus. I might also cross listen if I know someone's sign and I'm curious about what's happening for them. I would say that, like, any of these cards that get pulled, the message that you need to hear is the message you need to hear. And so, use that as you will. Okay, I love you. I'll be back in un momento with some cards. Okay, card for every sign. Let's start where we are with Taurus. 5 of Cups. Okay, so if you didn't have enough 5 action from the 5 month of May, there's going to be even more 5 energy around you. Change. 5 of Cups is difficult. It's a difficult energy. It is the card of grief and card of heartbreak. So what I'll say about this is it feels like there are some final, so in the card, there's 3 cups, then the wine or the blood is being spilled from these cups. I will say there are a few more drops to be spilt in terms of your heart. And it feels like the ending of a process, but it does feel important. And I'll repeat what has been said to me before, that the quality of our endings determine the quality of our beginnings. Wherever you are grieving in your life, whatever you are grieving for in your life, pay attention to it and open your arms to it and accept the rhythm of it, accept the unfolding, accept the evolution of it. The beautiful gift that is the 5 of Cups is that on the other side of that is a creative energy of new love. And that doesn't necessarily mean, new person. It means that you feel the preciousness and the sacred quality of engaging with the other in a new way. It makes sense, right? I forget what the quote is, but I remember after my mom passed away, the magnitude of your grief is something. I think David White said something like and he definitely said it much better than this. The magnitude of your grief is in proportion to the magnitude of joy you felt with the thing, the person, the experience. And I think that is just true. And so after we've had a loss or after we've fully grieved something or just honored the grief of anything in our lives, it does change us. And when we turn to new love, we turn to new joy, new awe, we do it with a sense of deep, deep gratitude. So I know that's a lot to say for Taurus, but I would just not resist. So it's not even surrendering as much as just don't resist anything that needs to happen for you in terms of grieving this month, and know that it feels like a good cry. That's what it feels like to me. When you just have a really good cry and your face is all salty and you're exhausted at the end of it, but there's a relief that comes all right. That's what's happening for you, Taurus. So I just send you so much love in May. Take good care of yourself. Give yourself the space you need. and trust that there is really just so much on the other side of this. And you allow this full grieving, knowing that it allows a fully present version of you to turn and face what's coming next, which is really beautiful. Okay. Gemini, 8 of Cups. All right, you too are kind of going through a little bit of a delicate heart space. The 8 of Cups is when we realize that what the world has told us about satisfaction is not landing. So we do all the things, we line it all up right, and we look at the life we've created and we say, not this, I don't know, something's missing. It doesn't feel quite right. I'm not quite satisfied. And we really turn with a passion for living to our own journey. We kind of turn and say, I'm gonna figure out how to do this in a way that satisfies me, kind of screw what everyone else thinks. And that is very much in line with this Hangman energy this month. It's very much in line with like, you know what you need and no one else has to understand it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Kendra, one of my teachers, she used to say, or she probably still says, but I loved it when she used to say, you don't need to explain yourself even to yourself. That is the energy of this month, Gemini. Like, whatever path you're walking, trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself. You kind of the 8 of Cups, it leads to the 9 of Cups, it leads to wish fulfillment. So trust wherever you're being called to show up, wherever you're being called to walk away, it's trying to lead you to, again, like that sense of dream bigger. Like there's more. And you know there's more. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. For Cancer, 8 of Pentacles. 8 of Pentacles is just a good, solid card. Good to feel earth energy after feeling those two like deep cup experiences of that Taurus and Gemini are going through. For Cancer, this is a month of work. Like dedicate yourself to your craft and your work for the sake of creating whatever you create, like for the sake of the work. And the 8 of Pentacles is just this idea of mastery, but mastery that comes from really like doing work that fulfills you, doing work that is just in line and in the essence of who you are, in line with and the essence of who you are. The Pentacles, the beauty of like the Pentacles in the tarot is that it's earth energy, right? So it's anything that you can touch. It's your body, your money, your world, people around you. And with Pentacles, what you see is you see the star, you see the magic, the spirit that infuses all things. And with the 8 of Pentacles, you're doing your work with the energy of like, my work matters. Like it is infused with spirit. I infuse everything I touch with love. I infuse everything I touch with spirit. That is the energy of 8 of Pentacles. You cannot fail. You cannot fail when you approach your work that way, with just this idea of, I give this. I give of my hands. I give of my craft to do what I'm here to do. It's good energy. So, but it's also like head down, get your work done this month. Okay, so Cancer, Leo, Queen of Pentacles. This is also earth energy. It's also this idea of devotion to your world, devotion to the things around you, the sense of joy that comes from that. The Queen of Pentacles is very at home in the world and very, whether her domain is small or large, she has a deep gratitude for the ability to tend to it. So that feels good for you, Leo, this month. Like attend to what is yours with a sense of joyful devotion and simple awe that this is yours, this is your life and your world. Yeah, tend to your body with the same, tend to your finances with the same, like just give care. This idea of, when you wash the dishes, be grateful that you're standing and you're healthy and you get to, use your hands and there's warm water. And like, where can you find just so much joy in the simple things? That is your opportunity this month. King of Wands for Virgo. Yes, for Virgo. Okay, Virgo. So you are, an earth sign, obvi, and the King of Wands is a fire sign. Like the King of Wands is like the sexy king in all of us. And what I love about the King of Wands is they say it's the king who would be a man. So the King of Wands is always like, am I comfortable with this much power? Do I really want to be in charge of anything? Or do I really just want to like get on a boat and sail the seas and like screw it all, right? So Virgo, know that there might be some part of your psyche or your energy that is craving adventure and spice and freedom this month. And freedom is a key word for 5, so it makes sense. And just honor him, her, like honor that part of you that wants to be free that maybe feels like responsibility is heavy. Just like honor that and feed him in whatever way. Like feed the part of you that wants to feel sexy and alive and potent and free. That just, I don't know what that means for you, but that's the invitation. Like he's going to be activated. And if you don't feed him intentionally, he's going to get antsy and possibly cause some trouble. So it would behoove you to let him tend to his fire. Let him go on his camping trip. Like that would be the metaphor. Like if you have like this hot, sexy partner who takes such good care of you, but you can tell he's getting antsy. So you send him out into the woods for a week to like go, howl at the moon. Whatever part of you is like that, like tend to it, allow it. Sorry, the energy's really funny. And it's not like a dangerous trouble, but it is like he's gonna cause trouble if he's not let loose a little bit. So take with that what you will. Libra, the Two of Pentacles. So Two of Pentacles is always about balancing our earthly responsibilities, and it can feel like an impossible task sometimes. The metaphor I like to use for the Two of Pentacles is like a mother of twins, right? So it's like, how do I tend to both? I love these babies. Both these babies are my babies and my joy, and I want to take such good care of them. But there's two of them. There's one of me, and it's impossible. That is the energy of Two of Pentacles. Again, in this month of like change and freedom and movement, just understand that there is enough of you, and you just take breaths and you take time and you tend to one thing at a time. You really be present with what is, and know that this balancing act won't last forever, but that it is part of what is happening for you. It is just true that there are at least two things in your life that equally matter in your world, and you're trying to learn how to navigate that. So just be so compassionate with yourself, be so patient with yourself, and understand that is a tricky spot to be in. And if you were looking at a friend who was in that spot, you'd be like, I got you, let me help you out. So understand that A, it's okay to ask for help, and B, it's okay for it just to be hard. And not hard in a bad way, just in a like everyday life way. So then Scorpio, Page of Wands. So Scorpio, Page of Wands, messages of love and romance and inspiration. And the pages are like the ones that are handed the ace. And so the wand energy is your fire energy, your sexuality, your creativity. And the pages are like just learning how to handle it. So there's some way in which you're exploring or engaging in a creative, like you're nurturing a flame and you're not really sure how to do it. And so again, like a lot of patience with yourself and play with it and enjoy it. You're not going to mess it up. Your job is to actually enjoy it and learn new ways, like learn to enjoy it in new ways. Pages also come with messages. So going back to what I was saying about Mercury retrograde, there might be temptations. There might be things you want to experiment and play with. And that would be the invitation of the Page of Wands, would be to not take it so seriously, to like understand part of what we're here to do is mess up and play and create. And what is that, like beautiful oops, the kids say when they mess up in their art and then it turns into something more beautiful. You don't have to take this so seriously this month. That's what I'll say. Don't take your creativity too seriously. Don't take your sexuality too seriously. Don't take your inspiration and your art too seriously this month. Okay, so Sagittarius, the Fool. Who got the Fool last month? Someone got the Fool last month. The Fool is protection and faith and a new leap. Like you are really, Sagittarius, this is kind of your nature anyway, to kind of have this buoyant optimism that Jupiter brings to the world. And the Fool is that energy doubled. So I don't know what's happening for you this month, but I would say you are protected and you are encouraged to leap. You are encouraged to trust the universe, trust source to catch you and to, give your wings air when you need it. It feels really good and it feels very aligned. Like I would imagine this energy on top of the energy that we're in, it kind of doubles down on that message of like, you don't need to explain yourself. You aren't even quite sure what's next, how you're doing it, and you don't need to explain it to anyone else. You just need to kind of stay close to source, stay close to God, stay close to yourself, and know that you're being called forward. You're being kind of called up and forward. It's cool energy, Sagittarius. Enjoy that. Capricorn, Three of Wands. Okay. Capricorn, you creator, you. So Three of Wands is one of the only cards in tarot where his or her back is to us, their back is to us. And the Three of Wands is really about learning to create from, like I said before about depth, learning to create from a new depth. And I just think that's really interesting for that to come up under Capricorn, because Capricorn is king energy, Capricorn is emperor energy. And this month, this Three of Wands is kind of saying like, but how do you feel about what you're creating? How deeply lit from within are you? Where are you sourcing your ambition from? Where are you sourcing your movement from? Where are you sourcing your success from? And in this month, Capricorn is being asked to source that from a deeper place. It's very, very powerful energy that I'm feeling for you. Like, this is world building, world creating energy. To take the energy of the sea goat and to match it with this kind of depth of fire is, man, it's a big energy. So I say that not to intimidate you. I say that to offer to you that something very profound is going to settle in you. And it might have implications for how you create or what you do for your work. And that's okay. You really trust this. Trust these deep instincts of fire that are going to come through in this month. It's big and it's important. It's something about you modeling that to the world, you somehow reflecting kind of what's going to happen when Pluto goes back into, is it Pluto going back into Capricorn? There feels like there's some, I don't know exactly if I'm saying that right, but there's some parallel here, and that feels like big energy and it feels important. It feels like you're really doing something for the world by honoring that energy in yourself. Cool. Aquarius, Ace of Cups. Okay, Aquarius, it's your month to fall in love, and that can be with a person, it can be with an idea, but cups are our heart. It's our swelling, aching, yearning heart, and the Ace of Cups is when the universe hands you a gift and says, I see that beautiful heart. Let me show you, let me reflect to you the beauty that is within you, and you fall in love. Like, it's a new dimension. Your heart opens up, it blooms into a new dimension of experiencing love. So that can be with other people, but it can also just be anywhere you fall in love. It can be with a child, a grandchild, it can be with nature, it can be with spring, it can be with your work, it can be with yourself. It can, it's really beautiful. Like, the energy of what would it mean to like to expand to new levels of self-love and appreciation, where you just kind of look in the mirror and you're like, oh my goodness, how'd I get so lucky? That feels really sweet. That's awesome, Aquarius. Pisces, the High Priestess. Okay, listen, you are the High Priestess. You are so intuitive already. The High Priestess coming up here says that is going to be on point this month. And also on point this month will be trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself, trust your intuition. It is quiet. That idea of what I said before about giving yourself space for retreat. Please, please, please do that this month, Pisces, whether you do it for a few minutes in the morning or do it for a few days at a time. Like, take the time to hear what's coming through, because there are important messages and channels opening up for you this month. It feels really important, Pisces. So I hope that you get that message. And then Aries, Judgment. Okay, Aries, listen. Woo, actually. All right, so Aries, you started this eclipse cycle this month. I don't know what's happening. I feel like maybe it's fixed sign energy. There's something that I know else important astrologically happening for you. Judgment is, my eyes are open. I cannot unsee what I've seen. It feels to me like there is an important shift coming, an important change coming for you, and an important change coming in terms of your perception. You are not ending this month the person that you started this month in. So everything I said applies. Make sure you carve out space for retreat. Make sure you carve out space for turning inward. Make sure you honor the depths of your being that are trying to reveal themselves. And make sure that you trust your experience above all else. You trust your intuition above all else. You trust your perspective above all else, because something important is shifting in your world. And the Judgment card says that once we see it, we cannot unsee it. And that is both beautiful and very, very real. So take good care of yourself. Please listen to what I said earlier in the podcast, and just know that things are going to change in ways you cannot imagine or expect this month. And that's okay. That's a good thing. It's all happening, definitely happening for you. And you don't need to do a lot. A lot's going to happen without you actually doing a lot, and that is okay too. Okay, beauties, take from that what you need. Leave anything that does not serve you, that does not bless you. This month, man, I am kind of excited to check in June and see where we all land, because it feels like we're going to look back and this is going to be an important time for all of us. So you take good care of yourself. You start with your water and your sleep and your food and your movement. You start with your body. You start with keeping things in order. Take these there's going to be like a day or two of April when this podcast comes out. If you hear this, take these last few days to get things in order, and then really trust the transformation that is happening in May. Trust the changes that are happening. They might not always be easy, but they are beautiful. And I can tell you that the energy I feel on the other side of this is a world I would like to live in. And that is the blessing that I will send out for us all, to be strong, to be clear, to be safe, and to be love. I will talk to you soon.